All right, so today we are going to have our first session with our campus pastor, Counselor T. So I'm so excited for her. I'm going to bring her on in just a moment. We're going to talk about some mental health issues and the church and just where we see the body of Christ today. And I think it's very important that we all understand, that mental health is a serious situation. So let's don't delay this any longer. Let's see if I can't pull her in. All right. Oh, yes, I can see you. I see the banner. I see you smiling. Look at you. What's going on? How you doing, counselor?
I am blessed and highly favored, walking in God's divine right purpose for my life, and so excited to be joining Apostle Q here today to have a conversation about mental health, the church, and the community.
All right. So I know you, but people don't know you. Who are you? What's up with you? What's your name?
I am, first and foremost, I am God's daughter. I am Mati, the mother of two, grandmother of six, and great grandmother of one. I am a community mental health counselor and the CEO of Rehope Ministries, which is a ministry designed to help restore hope to those who have lost hope. And our motto is, if not you, who? And if not now, when?
All right. Well, that sounds good. And at Kingdom Living, we're excited to have you here as part of the family, and your growth, your presence, has done a lot. When I first met you, it was March of last year. And do you mind sharing with the people how I met you?
Well, see, what had happened was I was at this conference and I was asked to come and help set up for the conference. And I got tricked into staying for the conference. So this little girl came in, and when she came in, she walked over to the other side of the room and she was just kind of standing there looking like she lost her little puppy.
Not a little girl, but go ahead.
So I went over and I told her, I said, you don't have to stand over here by yourself. It's okay.
Uh-huh.
She was like, "Oh no, I'm here. I'm here. My daughter's here." And I later found out that she was one of the speakers. And when Apostle was introduced, it was like I liken it to when Mary and Elizabeth got together, and uh, the babies leaped. And her introduction caused my baby to leap because it was like God had sent answers to my prayers. I've been in North Carolina for almost 5 years, and I had really been trying to figure out where I could go for my gift to be able to make room for itself. And it was like God had just dropped Apostle in my lap. And so, in staying at the conference, I really got an opportunity to minister. And that was the beginning of a wonderful relationship.
Amen. I'm glad you said that. That does something to my heart. And just for the record, we talked for a while before you even came to the church and even joined the church. I am a believer. I'm not. Um, I don't encourage people to join immediately to any ministry, because sometimes we do things because of our emotions. But you have to know that that's where God has called you. You can volunteer, but that full commitment, that there has to be communication between you and that leader saying, hey, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm here to serve. But when you did join, I was like, okay, the ministry is getting a good one, you know, um, because I learned you before you actually came to be part of this ministry. And I think people don't understand, or people choose not to have a relationship with their leader. They just think that I'm just going to go to church, get the word, I'm going to go home. But it's important for you to learn the leader and the leader learn you. It's very important. I thank God that we were able to build that relationship before you came to be part of the ministry because you learned me. You learned me
Yeah.
outside of the forefront, or me being in the forefront. You learned Q, you know,
Hmm.
and I'm grateful for that. So we're here today, and our hearts are the same when it comes to restoring people back to God. And I'm a believer. We all have many tasks to do this earth, you know, but how you do yours may be different from mine. So let's talk a little bit about the fate of the church. I and when I say this, I'm not saying this to cause controversial type of conversations, but I am willing to talk about the elephant, the pink elephant, the green elephant, and the yellow elephant in the room. I don't mind having those conversations. But when it comes to the church, I believe the church is getting better at looking at mental health, but for a long time, the church disregard issues and they contribute the issues to just demons or a
Hmm.
person choosing not to yield to the things of God. And I believe what has happened because some, even to this day, still don't know how to handle people in their issues. They'll sit them down, they'll overlook them and their gifts. You know, listen, God's not a respecter of person when it comes to our gifts. It is our responsibility to see why is this person hurting so badly. What has happened? What has been the breach? You know, in the contract between them and God.
Hmm.
So tell me a little bit about mental health and where do you see the church prior and where do you see the church now and where do you see the church in its future?
It goes pretty much back to what you said. Like once upon a time, when there were mental health issues in the church, it was just written off as somebody being demon possessed,
Mhm.
or it was what happens in the house stays in the house. So if you have an issue, you don't let anybody know that you have an issue. I think back to when I was growing up, and I have a, a cousin who was in the Vietnam War.
Mhm.
And today, I know that that cousin suffers from PTSD.
Okay.
And when he consumed amounts of alcohol, his PTSD symptoms increased.
Okay.
But I specifically remember a time when he came to our house, and it was wintertime, and he'd been drinking. And when he was in the house, he was talking, he was having flashbacks. He was
Uh-huh.
having active PTSD flashbacks. And he talked about Charlie, and um, Charlie was doing this and Charlie was doing that. And my mom made him go outside.
Uh-huh.
And that was kind of the norm at the time. But when I had the pleasure of becoming employed by the Veterans Health Administration and talking to PTSD victims on the crisis line, that
Mhm.
it wasn't until I was an adult that it clicked that it was PTSD.
Uh-huh.
Now, I have, I have a, I say that my grandmother sits at the right hand of Jesus because of her relationship with God. And we
Right.
had several praying people in our family, but his mental health disorders were just ignored. It was just, he was drunk. It was attributed to him being intoxicated.
Okay.
So that was one, then that was where the church was with mental health.
Okay.
And in all honesty, depending on what church you go to today, that's still where the church is with mental health issues.
I agree.
So let's say 2009,
Mhm.
and that was when I first encountered an organization. I can't remember the name of it, but it's an organization that blends spiritual beliefs of all kinds with the treatment of mental health issues. So, now there are resources available where we can address your spiritual concerns,
Okay.
but we can also address your mental health issues.
Okay. Okay.
One of the greatest downsides to mental health issues in the religious community
Mhm.
is the belief that pastors, no matter what their background, are equipped to address mental health issues.
Talk to us.
And I think that comes from the demonic perspective of
Hmm.
mental health issues. And
Right.
yes, there are some times where there needs to be a type of deliverance,
Mhm.
but after you conduct the deliverance, then what?
Right.
Because you have some people who are on meds, and it's not ethical for a pastor or someone in the mental health field to say, "You've been delivered, so you good, stop taking your meds."
Right.
It doesn't work like that.
Right.
Moving forward, that's the difficult piece because that's cultural, that's spiritual, and it's mental. Because um, a lot of cultures, I'm not even going to say the Black culture or the Hispanic culture only, but people are under the belief that I don't want other people to know my business.
Right.
But quiet as it's kept, behaviors are already telling your business.
Right.
So do you
It's good.
continue to try and keep it in the house and under the rug and in the back of the house, in the corner, in the back, in the shed? Or do you allow godly counsel and qualified mental health providers to help you address where you are and honestly move from where you are to where God would have you to be? So, I feel like we have a ways to go before people understand that it's okay to have a conversation with a therapist. It's okay to say, you know what? I'm not feeling good about me right now.
Right.
And honestly, I entertain thoughts of ending my life
Right. Right.
and
That,
not have to concern yourself with, well, if you kill yourself, you're going to hell because the Bible
right.
said that's not a concern of somebody who is seriously entertaining ending their life. They're not worried about going to heaven or hell. They're in hell on earth.
So let me interrupt real quickly. So how
Mhm.
do we, as a church, because you made a valid point, as a pastor, there are some pastors who are not equipped. They may have gone to seminary schools. They may have um, inherited a church, and that may be it. They're just focusing on the growth of the ministry, the people that's there building the auxiliaries. They may not be as educated in those areas. What do you suggest to those leaders who may not understand that mental health goes beyond your cousin being locked in the room when you was growing up and everybody said, well, he's crazy, or they called him a certain name? What do you tell that leader who has a member who's in and out of the church, or um, they battle with depression, or they're battling with anxiety? We don't even talk about just suicide, but I will say this, for example. I know this girl, it was years ago. She kept coming to church, but she always had suicidal thoughts, but she kept coming to church. And no one knew until one day there was a service and it was exposed. And she said that day that she was going to participate in the women's ministry that she was part of and go home and kill herself. That touched my heart. What do you do? What do you tell a leader who's very traditional, very religious, and all they want to do is have services and not serve the people? How do you tell them to look for the signs? And I know I said a lot.
The conversation that hopefully the leader is open to is you're not serving God to the best of your ability if you're not willing to see the signs.
Right.
because that leader is actually contributing to the problem and not the solution.
Right.
So the traditional piece is a definite hindrance. But if you don't have it in your church, it's okay to outsource.
Yes.
I have I have plenty of pastors that call me and say, listen, I got this family, I got this person, I need somebody to talk to.
Right.
So the first thing is to open, like we can't keep our hands closed and
Right.
expect to get a blessing. So
Right.
if you have a leader over a congregation that just wants to keep all his sheep, I'm keep nope, this mine, and I don't want you because they might leave and go to another
Yes.
church.
That part.
Okay, okay. But if they do you want them to leave and stay in the kingdom, or do you want them to leave and in their life or in somebody else's life, or leave the kingdom
Hmm.
altogether because they struggle with anxiety, they struggle with bipolar disorder, they struggle
Right.
with schizophrenia, they a number of things. So the
Right.
first thing that has to happen for real, is the mind of the pastor
Right.
has to change.
Right. Right.
I had the privilege teaching those of teaching pastors and people in ministry. And it was the cutest thing because the pastors that were in my class always thought that they knew so much more than me.
Hmm.
And I'm the kind of person where if you a star and you want to shine, I'll
Hmm.
polish you. I'm not arguing with you
Right.
because I know what God has called me to as an elder, as a mental health counselor, and as a person who has struggled with mental health issues myself.
Hmm.
So to to condense all that,
Right.
it flows from the head. So if
Right.
you don't have a pastor who acknowledges that mental health illnesses are real,
Right.
then nothing's gonna happen. People gonna be
Right.
stuck because, well, my pastor said all I have to do is pray and
Mhm.
fast because the word said that these kind only come out through prayer and fasting. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Prayer and fasting aim.
Right. Right. Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
Right. And I agree with you because we were raised to believe that it was just the need for deliverance. Everything was a demon or everything was a spirit. But when I first went to college, I went for Christian counseling because I wanted to know, why do people do the things that they do. I didn't want to go to seminary school. I didn't want to. I mean, I took some classes, whatever, but I'm like, nah, this is bigger. And this was like in the early 2000s. This is bigger than what I am seeing in the church. How do you reach people where they're at, in the capacity where they're at? And you have to go beyond just saying, read the Bible. We want people to read the Bible. Don't get me wrong. We got to read the Bible. But for those who struggle, for those who struggle with addiction, um, and a lot of times people don't realize that some mental health is passed on. So how do you help with that situation? They inherited um, anxiety or depression, and then they go through life and have a situation. Now they have PTSD. How do you help them? You can't just say read the Bible only. You have to provide some extra support. And I think as leaders, sometimes leaders are so caught up with, again, building the people the way the books tell us to build the people, building the
Hmm.
church, which means that a church is not growing unless there's a lot of people in it,
Hmm.
and not realizing that having mega means that you're also taking the chance that somebody's going to get lost if you don't have the right leadership in place or the right auxiliaries in place to help the people. Because we all know that we're all different. And I think that mental health is a conversation that we will continue to have. I love the idea of just allowing you to do your portion before I minister. You know, it sets the stage. It prayerfully is letting people know that we're serious here. And not only just that component, but we want to open it up for the people abroad, to feel like, hey, I can find somebody who I can trust to talk to, who's not going to judge me, who's not going to say that, I will only talk to you if you come to church. That's why sometimes people don't want to go to church. They got these issues that's going on. So we're going to come back with the second part. And in the second part, I want you to talk about, as leaders, regardless of our titles, regardless of our background, what do you see far as the future? How do we grab hold of mental health issues in the church? Okay. I want you to think about it, and we're going to come back to it. All right.
Okay.
All right. So, y'all, we have been talking with Minister T. I'm so excited for what it is that we're doing here at Kingdom Living Ministries. I'm grateful for her portion, for the gifts and her talents that God has for her, and what she's going to bring to help restore mankind back to God. And so just hold on. We'll come back for a second part.